Hi, we're going to super quickly run through how to use the XPlotterSVG tool to convert between an Inkscape SVG file and a G-code file that's suitable for the XPlotter specifically. So this application is Inkscape. It's available on Windows and Linux and Mac OS. If you've not got it, you can Google it to find out how to get it. It's free. And I've created a template file that lays out an XPlotter environment. So this view box here is about the same size as the workspace on the XPlotter. So we can start and get some elements into our design. We'll have some text, draw a star, draw a circle, draw a rectangle. Super, we can move these things around a little bit, arrange them how we want to have them arranged for our design. So let's put a fancy font and make it a bit bigger. There we go. Before we're ready to convert this and put it onto the burner though, there are a few things we're going to need to do. The first thing we're going to do is decide how we want to render this on the XPlotter. The XPlotter has a variety of tools and you can use a variety of media with it, and those things will need to be converted to the G-code in slightly different ways. So to inform the utility of how we want to convert this, we've created some material files, and here is a material file I've created that's going to use the laser and use the laser on 3mm plywood. This name is just an arbitrary one I've done just so I know what this material file is for. And I've set up 4 different settings in this material file for light, medium, dark, marks on the wood, and to cut, so cut all the way through. So if it's this line, I want it to be cut all the way through on the wood. So for a light line, I'm going to have a fast feed rate of 800, full power, and I'm going to use the laser. Tool 2 is the laser, tool 1 is the pen. The dark cut is then going to be a much slower, so it's the same power but just going at a quarter of the speed. Cut all the way through is half that power again, so just down to 100, but it's going to do each cut 4 times. So when we generate the G-code for anything that's marked to cut, it's going to generate that G-code 4 times, so the XPlotter will just keep doing it that number of times. We can relate elements in the material file to the SVG file by colour. So this light entry has a hex code of FF0000, which is red. So if I take the star for instance, and we have a look at the fill and stroke, we can see that there's no fill, and the stroke I can set to 25500, which gives us an RGB code of FF0000. The FF at the end is the alpha, that should always be 255. I've got a red line, we can see it's a red line. Has to be exactly that red line, can't be 254, these have got to be 0, has to be an exact match. So the circle, let's do that in green. The rectangle, we'll do that in blue. Okay, and if we look back at the material file, we'll see that the medium is the blue line, the dark is the green line. Cut all the way through is black line, so anything that's black will be done 4 times and cut all the way through. For the text, there's a couple of extra things we need to do as well. Firstly, the utility is pretty good with a lot of SVG elements, but text and font rendering is beyond its capabilities. So once we've got the text fixed, you need to go to Path, Object to Path, and that's it. It looks exactly the same, but the utility will now convert that correctly for the XPlotter. What you've lost is the ability to edit this as a piece of text now. What we need to do, however, is remove the fill. The XPlotter will only plot the outlines of things. It won't fill things in. It's not a rendering engine. So we're going to put a stroke on the outside and remove the fill so we can just see the outline, and we'll leave that blue, and that's fine. Okay. One more thing we have to do is to change the stroke width, because this looks all right with a stroke width of 1mm, but that can really mess up with doing the calculations for the curves and where does that millimetre start and end. So we're going to say stroke style to millimetres, and we're going to convert it to 0.001 millimetres wide, and it looks like it's completely vanished, only it hasn't. And I'm hoping there, if we zoom right in, we can still see the line is there. And this is your opportunity to check all the joins and everything is exactly right, because this is how it's going to be calculated for burning. Okay, so we've got the material file, we've got the colours. You can have as many of these as you want. I've done an example here of 4 colours to do different techniques. You can have 50 or 100 of them, as long as each of them has a unique hex code and the line you make exactly matches that hex code. So this orange text on the left over here, that's going to be ignored completely by the utility because it's the wrong colour. Right, File, Save As, Plain SVG, and I'm going to call it demo.svg. Okay, and that's it for Inkscape. Now we can go to a command line. Here is the demo SVG. This is the folder we've just created that SVG file into. It also has the material files, we can see them in here, and the SVG jar itself. Right, Java, -jar, XPlotterSVG, demo.svg, laser plus 3mm plywood XML, demo.gcode. So Java -jar plotter SVG jar means run the program. Run the program with this SVG file using this material file, and when you create a file, create it as demo.gcode. Okay, and it's done it. We've got this new file, this demo.gcode. Right, I'm going to show you one more utility, and that's Candle. Candle is available on Windows and Linux and Mac OS. If you've not got it installed, you can Google how to install it. And it's a program for controlling plotters and laser burners like the XPlotter. It doesn't actually work with the XPlotter itself, but it does have some useful features that we do like, because what it does do is visualize the plotting so we can see it before we burn it. So if there is a mistake, if something's not gone right, we have an opportunity to check it here before you go and waste valuable materials. So we can see exactly what the commands that the XPlotter is going to execute to produce our drawing. And as it simulates the XPlotter plotting it, as I scroll down, you can see that it's changed to blue to see whether it's been marked. So a very useful application. So here is my SD card. There's demo.gcode. Let's drag that onto the SD card and rename it xplotter.g. If you don't give it an output file name, it'll default to xplotter.g. And we'll eject the boot file and we'll go and plug it in and try it. So I've put the SD card into the XPlotter now, press the SD card button, and we'll see the program being executed. There we go, there's the final shape.